Have you ever looked at your resume and immediately felt nervous because of that one empty gap on the timeline?
Honestly, yes. Every single time I apply for a job, I worry recruiters will focus on the gap instead of my skills.
And the longer the gap is, the worse it feels, right?
Exactly. You start thinking, what if they think I'm lazy? What if they think nobody wanted to hire me? Sometimes I even hesitate before clicking the apply button.
That feeling is more common than you think, especially for people in their late 20s and 30s. At this stage of life, people go through so much pressure: work pressure, financial pressure, emotional pressure.
Yeah, and sometimes life just doesn't go according to plan.
Exactly. Some people leave their jobs because of burnout, some lose motivation completely, others need time to take care of family, improve their mental health, or simply figure out what they really want in life.
I remember waking up every morning feeling exhausted before work even started, and when I finally decided to quit and rest for a while, I thought I was destroying my career.
That's the part nobody talks about enough. People see the resume gap, but they don't see the stress, the anxiety, or the emotional exhaustion behind it.
And after a few months, the fear gets even bigger. You start comparing yourself to everyone else on LinkedIn. Everyone seems successful except you.
But here's the truth. Having a resume gap does not automatically ruin your career. What matters is how you explain the story behind it.
And honestly, sometimes the way you talk about your experience matters more than the gap itself.
Exactly. Because confidence, clarity, and self-awareness can completely change how people see your journey.
So listeners, if you've been feeling ashamed about your career break, this episode is definitely for you.
Stay with us until the end of this video, because today we're going to show you exactly how to explain a resume gap professionally, confidently, and naturally in English without sounding awkward or insecure. So first, let's talk about why resume gaps happen more often than people admit.
Yeah, I'm ready. You know what surprised me, Cece? After talking to more people, I realized almost everyone has some kind of career break.
Exactly. But people rarely talk about it openly. On social media, everyone looks productive all the time. New jobs, promotions, certifications, big achievements. But behind the scenes, many people are quietly struggling.
That's so true. When I was on my career break, I stopped posting online completely. I didn't want people asking questions like, "So, what are you doing now?"
Because sometimes you don't even know how to answer that question yourself.
Exactly. And honestly, that period was emotionally exhausting for me. At first, I thought I was just tired, but after a while, I realized I was completely burned out.
Burnout is becoming extremely common now, especially among working adults. People work long hours, deal with constant pressure, answer emails late at night, and slowly lose their energy without realizing it.
That was literally me. I remember checking my phone at midnight because I was afraid of missing work messages.
And after enough time, your body and your mind both start saying, I can't do this anymore.
The scary part is, from the outside, I looked completely fine.
A lot of people do. That's why career breaks are much more common than people think. Some people leave because of burnout, others leave because of layoffs, family responsibilities, health issues, or mental health struggles.
And sometimes people leave simply because they feel lost.
Exactly. Not every resume gap comes from failure. Sometimes people need time to reconnect with themselves.
I wish more people understood that. When I left my job, I felt guilty all the time, like I was falling behind in life.
That feeling is very common in your late 20s and 30s. You look around and everyone seems to be moving forward, getting promoted, buying houses, building careers.
Meanwhile, you're sitting at home wondering what happened to your confidence.
And the longer the break lasts, the more pressure you feel to fix your life quickly.
Yes, at first I thought, okay, I'll rest for 1 month. Then 1 month became 3 months, and suddenly I became afraid to apply for jobs again.
Because the gap itself starts feeling bigger in your mind.
Exactly. I kept thinking, what if recruiters think I'm lazy? What if they think something is wrong with me?
But here's something important people need to hear. Most recruiters care less about the gap itself than people imagine.
Really?
Yes, what interviewers usually care about is, can you communicate clearly? Did you learn something during that time? Are you ready to work again? And can you explain your experience professionally?
That actually makes me feel a lot better.
Because confidence changes everything. Two people can have the exact same career break, but the one who explains it calmly and professionally will always leave a stronger impression.
That makes sense. I think many people panic when they hear the question because they already feel ashamed inside.
Exactly. And interviewers can immediately feel insecurity in your tone, your body language, and your answers.
I used to overthink every little detail, like should I hide the dates on my resume or should I pretend I was freelancing?
And honestly, that stress usually makes things worse.
True.
It's much better to accept your story and explain it with maturity, because being human is not a weakness.
I think that's something many working adults need to hear, especially people who are trying to rebuild their confidence after a difficult period.
Absolutely. And sometimes career breaks become turning points in life.
What do you mean?
Well, many people use that time to learn new skills, rethink their priorities, improve their health, or even discover a completely different career path.
Actually, that happened to me too.
Really?
Yeah. During my break, I started taking online courses because I suddenly had free time again. At first, it was just to stay busy, but later I realized I genuinely enjoyed learning again.
That's amazing.
I studied communication skills, project management, and even practiced English more seriously.
See, that's growth, and that's exactly the kind of thing interviewers want to hear.
So instead of apologizing for the gap, I should focus on what I learned from it?
Exactly. You don't need to pretend the experience was perfect. You just need to show self-awareness and growth.
I like that. Self-awareness and growth. That sounds much healthier than trying to look perfect.
Because perfection is unrealistic, especially in today's world.
Honestly, after the pandemic and all the layoffs happening everywhere, I think people understand career instability more now.
Absolutely. The modern career path is no longer a straight line. People change industries, take breaks, restart careers, move countries, learn new skills. Life is much more flexible now.
But emotionally, it still feels scary sometimes.
Of course. No matter how common resume gaps become, there's still emotional pressure attached to them, especially when you compare yourself to others.
Comparison is dangerous.
Very dangerous, because people only show the highlight reel online. They don't show the panic attacks, the sleepless nights, or the moments when they question everything.
Wow, that's true.
And honestly, some of the strongest people you know probably went through periods where they felt completely lost.
I think hearing that makes people feel less alone.
That's the goal of today's episode. Not just to teach English, but to help people feel more confident about their journey too.
And I think many listeners needed this reminder today. Taking a break does not mean your career is over.
Exactly. Sometimes stepping away is the first step to becoming healthier, stronger, and clearer about what you truly want.
And maybe the gap itself isn't the real problem. Maybe the real problem is the shame people carry because of it.
Beautifully said, Tom.
So, now comes the important part.
Yes, because understanding resume gaps is one thing, but explaining them professionally in an interview is another challenge completely.
So, let's talk about that next. What are the biggest mistakes people make when explaining a resume gap in an interview?
Sometimes stepping away is the first step toward becoming healthier, stronger, and clearer about what you truly want.
And maybe the gap itself isn't the real problem. Maybe the real problem is the shame people carry because of it. Because once the interview starts, a lot of people panic and don't know how to talk about their resume gap naturally or confidently.
That's so true. And honestly, the way you explain it can completely change the interviewer's impression of you.
So let's talk about that next. What are the biggest mistakes people make when explaining a resume gap in an interview?
Okay, let's start with mistake number 1, over-explaining.
Oh no, I already feel attacked.
that used to be me.
Honestly, many people do this because they feel nervous.
Yeah, the interviewer asks one simple question like, "So, can you tell me about this gap on your resume?" And suddenly you start telling your entire life story.
Exactly. You start from 2021, then talk about your stress, your toxic manager, your breakup, your quarter-life crisis.
And somehow 10 minutes later, nobody remembers the original question anymore.
Exactly.
I think people over-explain because they want to prove they're not lazy.
That's a very important point. When people feel judged, they start defending themselves emotionally.
And the more emotional you sound, the less confident you sound.
Exactly. Remember this. An interview is not therapy.
Wow, that sentence is powerful.
You don't need to tell interviewers every painful detail of your life. Keep your answers short, calm, and professional.
So instead of talking for 5 minutes, what should people do?
Think of your answer in 3 simple parts. What happened, what you learned, why you're ready now.
That already sounds much cleaner.
For example, I took some time off to focus on my health and reassess my career goals. During that period, I also worked on improving my communication skills, and now I'm excited to return to work.
That sounds mature, not defensive.
Exactly. You want to sound self-aware, not ashamed.
Okay, what's the second big mistake?
Lying.
Oof, I think many people secretly consider this at least once.
Absolutely, especially when the gap becomes longer,
I remember thinking, maybe I should just say I was freelancing.
even though you weren't.
Exactly.
And honestly, I understand why people do it. They're scared. They think employers only want perfect candidates.
Especially online, LinkedIn makes everyone look successful all the time.
Exactly. But the problem with lying is that your confidence disappears immediately.
Because deep down, you're afraid of getting caught.
Yes, and interviewers are very good at noticing hesitation.
Especially when they ask follow-up questions.
Exactly. If you say you were freelancing, they might ask, what projects did you work on? Who were your clients? What skills did you develop?
And suddenly you're building an entire fake story in real time.
Which creates even more anxiety.
Honestly, that sounds exhausting.
It is. And the truth is, most interviewers respect honesty much more than perfection.
That's actually comforting.
Because confidence does not come from pretending your life was perfect. Confidence comes from accepting your story without shame.
Okay, I think this next mistake is probably the most common one.
Let me guess. Sounding insecure.
Exactly.
Yes. Sometimes people technically give the right answer, but emotionally they still sound embarrassed.
Like saying, yeah, things were a little complicated.
Or, I know the gap looks bad.
Oh, wow. I've literally said that before.
And notice what happens psychologically. The moment you say, I know this looks bad, you immediately frame yourself negatively.
So even before the interviewer judges you, you already judged yourself first.
Exactly.
That's actually really deep.
And interviewers can feel energy very quickly. If you sound ashamed of your own experience, people unconsciously start questioning your confidence.
So the goal is not just saying the right words, it's saying them calmly.
Exactly. Tone matters, body language matters, energy matters.
I think many listeners will relate to this. Sometimes we rehearse answers perfectly at home, but during the interview, fear completely changes our voice.
That's normal, especially if you've been unemployed for a while. Job searching can affect your confidence deeply.
It really can. After months of rejection, you start doubting yourself.
And that emotional weight follows people into interviews.
So how do people sound more confident naturally?
One simple trick is this: stop treating your resume gap like a crime.
Wow.
Seriously, you're explaining a life experience, not confessing a mistake.
That mindset shift changes everything.
It really does, and confidence often comes from accepting your own story first.
You know, it's interesting. I think many people believe interviewers expect perfect career journeys.
But modern careers are messy now.
Exactly. People switch industries, move countries, change priorities, experience burnout.
And employers know that, especially after the pandemic and all the layoffs in recent years.
So maybe people are actually being much harder on themselves than recruiters are.
A lot of the time, yes.
That honestly makes me feel lighter.
Good. Because the goal isn't to hide your humanity. The goal is to communicate it professionally.
I love that sentence.
And remember, interviewers are not only listening to your story, they're also asking themselves, does this person seem emotionally mature? Can they communicate clearly? Are they ready to move forward?
So even a difficult experience can become a strong answer if you explain it correctly.
Exactly.
So let's recap the biggest mistakes: over-explaining, lying, and sounding ashamed or insecure.
Exactly. And once you avoid those three things, explaining a resume gap becomes much easier than people expect.
But I think listeners are probably wondering something right now.
What's that?
What should a good answer actually sound like?
Perfect question. Because in the next part, we're going to practice real interview answers you can actually use in professional situations.
And honestly, if you've ever felt embarrassed, lost, or nervous because of a resume gap, take a second to like this video. You're definitely not alone, and hopefully today's conversation is helping you feel a little more confident about your journey.
Okay, so now that we've talked about the biggest mistakes, let's move on to something more practical. What does a good answer actually sound like in a real interview?
Yes, please, because I think this is the part people get most nervous about.
Absolutely. And the good news is this: you do not need a perfect answer. You just need an answer that sounds honest, calm, and professional.
I like that, because sometimes people put too much pressure on themselves to sound impressive.
Exactly. But interviewers usually respond better to clarity than perfection.
Okay, Cece, let's do a role play.
Perfect. I'll be the interviewer and you answer naturally. Ready?
Ready.
So, Tom, I noticed there's a gap on your resume. Could you tell me about that?
Of course. After several years in a fast-paced work environment, I decided to take some time off to recharge and reassess my career goals. During that period, I also focused on improving my communication and project management skills.
That's a very strong answer.
Really? Why?
Because it sounds calm and mature. You're not apologizing, you're not panicking, and you immediately show growth.
So instead of focusing only on the break itself, I focus on what I learned during that time?
Exactly. That small shift changes the entire energy of the conversation.
Okay, but what if someone left work because they were burned out emotionally?
Great question. And honestly, many people are in that situation right now.
Especially after stressful jobs or toxic work environments.
Exactly. But remember, interviews are about professionalism, not emotional oversharing.
So maybe don't say, "My job destroyed my mental health and I cried every night."
Yes, maybe not. So how can people say it in a professional way? Something simple like, I took some time away from work to focus on my well-being and gain clarity about my long-term career direction.
Wow, that sounds so much calmer.
Because professionalism is often about emotional control. You can be honest without sharing every painful detail.
Okay, next situation. What if someone took time off for family responsibilities?
That's also very common.
Especially for adults in their 30s.
Exactly. A professional answer could be, I stepped away from full-time work temporarily to support my family, while continuing to stay active professionally and develop my skills.
I like that answer because it still sounds proactive.
Yes, that word is important. Proactive. You want interviewers to feel that even during the break, you were still growing as a person.
What about career changes? I think many listeners are trying to switch industries right now.
Definitely. And honestly, career transitions are much more normal today than they were 10 years ago.
People change careers all the time now.
Exactly. So instead of sounding confused or uncertain, you want to sound intentional.
What would that sound like?
Something like, I used that period to transition into a new industry and build the skills necessary for this role.
Short, clear, confident.
Exactly. Remember, confidence often sounds simple.
You know what I'm noticing? All these good answers have one thing in common.
What's that?
None of them sound defensive.
Exactly. Because once you stop trying to justify your gap, your answer becomes much more natural.
That's such a good point.
And another important thing is, your tone matters just as much as your words.
Meaning,
If you say a good answer while sounding nervous, ashamed, or uncomfortable, interviewers will still feel that energy.
so confidence is part of the answer itself.
Absolutely. Even your body language matters. Eye contact, posture, speaking slowly, not rushing your words.
I think people forget that interviews are emotional too.
Very emotional. Interviewers are not robots. They're constantly reading your confidence level.
Okay, let's do a quick practice section for listeners.
Perfect. Listeners, repeat after us slowly and confidently.
You used that time productively.
I used that time productively.
The experience helped me grow.
The experience helped me grow.
I learned valuable skills during that period.
I learned valuable skills during that period.
And now I'm excited for new opportunities.
And now I'm excited for new opportunities.
Honestly, these answers already sound much more professional than what I used to say in interviews.
Because the goal is not to hide your journey. The goal is to explain it with confidence and self-awareness.
And I think many people don't realize this, but interviewers usually care more about your attitude than your timeline.
That is absolutely true.
A confident explanation can completely change the way people see your resume gap.
Exactly. And before we finish today, there's one final message I really want every listener to remember about career breaks and self-worth.
And I think that's something many people really need to hear, because during a career break, sometimes the biggest battle isn't the interview itself, it's losing confidence in yourself.
That is so true. When people experience a resume gap, they often start questioning their value, their abilities, and even their future.
Yeah, and after hearing today's conversation, I realized the gap itself isn't what defines you. It's the way you grow through that period and how you choose to move forward afterward.
Exactly. And honestly, today's lesson is not just about interviews. It's about learning how to speak about your journey with confidence instead of shame. Before we end today's episode, let's quickly go over the biggest lesson from today.
A resume gap is not something you need to hide or feel ashamed of.
Exactly. What really matters is how you talk about that experience, with confidence, honesty, and self-awareness.
Today we learned that resume gaps happen for many different reasons: burnout, family responsibilities, career transitions, or simply needing time to reset.
And we also talked about the biggest mistakes people make in interviews: over-explaining, lying, or sounding insecure about their own story.
Then we practiced how to answer those difficult interview questions in a calm and professional way.
Because at the end of the day, interviewers are not looking for a perfect life. They're looking for someone who can communicate clearly and move forward with confidence.
And honestly, I think many listeners probably feel less alone after today's conversation.
I hope so too, especially if you've been doubting yourself lately because of your career journey.
So if today's episode helped you, don't forget to subscribe to Focus English with CC.
We make English lessons for real working adults, especially if you want to become more confident in interviews, meetings, and professional communication.
And leave a comment below. What is one thing you learned from today's episode?
Or share your own experience. Have you ever had a career break before?
We'd love to read your stories.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Keep practicing your English and keep believing in yourself.
And we'll see you again in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.